I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain. We bag enough. I, I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain. We bag enough. Poppin' tan model BC couldn't brag 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 enough. I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain.
And welcome once again to another episode of the Horizon Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and joining me is my co-host, Jim Sarro.
Hey, Bob. This week I am here to tell all of our faithful listeners that Horizon on Horizon is not a victimless crime.
Whatever do you mean? We'll get to that later. But Jim, you can find on Twitter at Jim Sarro. You can find us on the web at horizonroundtable.com. You can find the links to all of our social accounts and sites where podcasts are available at horizonroundtable.com/subscribe. Why are you bothering with the socials? Just sign up for the emails, get the email alerts. You'll get anytime we post something on horizonroundtable.com, you'll get it in your inbox. Don't bother with social media anymore. It's evil. We have to because not everybody follows those instructions. But you can be one of those people who is more enlightened at horizonroundtable.com/subscribe. Become a patron, patreon.com/horizonroundtable. Features start on June 3rd. We actually announced who's going to be the first feature. James Moon has got a feature about Alex Hubricks. So you don't want to miss that. And if you want to catch up on any of the other features we did last year that are only exclusive to patrons, sign up for $1. Patreon.com/Horizon Roundtable. And of course, you can donate to us as always at horizonroundtable.com/donate. And Jim, before we get into the latest and greatest as it relates to transfers, the NCAA has their heads up their asses. There's no other way to describe it, really.
This is just proof. I mean, we always knew, but now we have proof.
Yes, we do. So, for those of you who don't know, and if you don't know and you're listening to this podcast, okay. Because usually I venture to guess if you're listening to the Horizon Roundtable in May, you are a true sicko, and so you've probably seen just about as much as we have. And one of those things is the NCAA announced they're expanding the tournament from 68 to 76 teams for both the men's and the women's. So now I've given this a lot of thought. On the men's side, this is a giant clusterfuck. It just is. There's no way around it. What the hell are you? The only thing you're doing is you're kissing the asses of the power conferences, which I guess is okay. Because I suppose more of the power conference, everybody who's a fan of a power conference team, the folks who go to our, the folks who are students and alumni of our schools who will lie like hell and say they go to a different school. Those folks, yeah, this is probably makes them happy. Although I got to point out, the crappy attendance numbers at the college basketball crowd should suggest otherwise. Some of the NCAA is apparently going through the calculus of, oh, these power conference teams must travel better. I mean, maybe, I don't know. Like, it's bullshit, but it is what it is. So yes, so there will be 8 additional teams. That means there will be, I believe, as of right now, I think what is the breakdown? I think they're going to have 12 teams play in the first round as opposed to the 8 that we had. Is that what it is? I can't remember.
No, it was more than that.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry because it's for the first 4, which is the last 4 in, which until this season was the 11 seed, and then the 4 16 seeds. So I guess they're going to tack on some additional folks, which is probably going to include now all of the 16 seeds. So Sorry, low major
and
conferences, you're just flat out shit out of luck on that one.
some of
And
the 15 seeds.
and some of the 15 seeds. Yeah, exactly. And I don't think they've pulled out the whole entire, and I think I believe, what is it, all the 11 seeds? I don't know.
It was like 11s, 12s, maybe a 13. It was it wasn't a specific set. It was more of based on their the rankings that they had coming into this. I forget. I read it. I was like, I just looked at it. I thought, okay, the fact that automatic qualifiers have to be part of this at a larger scale is
Yep,
all I need to know about its failure.
of course.
The entire reason the rest of the teams that know they have no chance at and conferences that know they have no chance at winning the championship, the entire
Yeah.
existence that makes it cool and gets people interested is knowing that in March on a
Mm-hmm.
Thursday afternoon, your little guy school has
Yeah.
their chance on the biggest
Mm-hmm.
stage with no other sports on during the day. You have an opportunity to go and win and pull
Mm-hmm.
off an upset. Maybe you're Siena and you choose to only play five guys, but that's a legendary story. They took Duke to the brink with five guys. Like
Yeah.
you're depriving what few Cinderella stories are left in the NIL era. You're giving less of a chance of that because you're pushing more people to the play-in
Yeah.
scenario. I think we
Mm-hmm.
could say this is a complete and total slap in the face and one step closer to having the basketball equivalent of FBS and FCS championships where we don't even get to play on the biggest stage anymore because that's where this seems to be heading.
Of course. Yeah. Because, again, it's part and parcel to this, this college sports arms race that I've been talking about over and over, where, you know, rich assholes are just throwing money at these teams, throwing money at these schools, and okay, cool. And the worst part is it's not even gonna get any better. Apparently the Big East is gonna start taking private equity money. Do you guys not read anything about private equity companies and how they basically destroy everything? Are you guys, I mean, that's on you guys, by the way. I don't see mid majors ever doing that. And if they did, I would look at these firms sideways, knowing full well that I am seeing them for what they actually are. But it's like,
Well, when that all goes sideways and those Big 12 teams that took private equity money, they'll just have,
which as
the
sure as I'm
state.
sitting here is gonna happen.
Oh, yeah. But they're going to have, in the Big 12, there's a conference primarily composed of uh, public schools. The state system will bail those schools out of the stupidity that is taking this money on. But the hard part is once somebody takes that kind of money, everybody else has to because when you can just spend at will, above the cap on some of the stuff, it all you need is one national championship to make it worth it. And so somebody's going to take it, and then everybody else will follow suit.
I guess, but I mean, as I said before, at a certain point in time, the return on investment's not going to be there. And it's not going to be there for a lot of power conference schools. I mean, what is it? Take the money now and hope that take the money now and cross your fingers and hope things get better. I mean, if you're freaking Rutgers, you're screwed.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can't fix their operational deficit just off of one cash
no,
infusion.
you
It's too,
can't. You can't.
they're
And,
they're hanging on to something that doesn't really exist for them as a program, which is the
but the
idea that
perception is that the perception is because money is king now, this is what's happening. And, we're just not a part of that equation anymore. I mean, we never were. Let's be honest. We never were, but, the disparity isn't anywhere close. And it's like, I mean, and it isn't even true and it honestly isn't even really true for some of as I mentioned, a lot of these power conference schools. You know, yeah, a crappy Penn State team might get into the tournament now, but do you think do you think Penn State fans by and large give an open rat's ass about basketball? No, it's been proven year over year.
for
They care about
decades.
football. So, and I guarantee you that crowd is not going to travel like the football crowd does. It's just not. But far be it from me to say anything because this is not the Big Ten roundtable. So,
Yeah, the number of like the bottom tier basketball, high major basketball teams that's gonna have an uprising with their fan base and fan interest off of this is going to be relatively low. I mean, you have to give like Nebraska a lot of credit. They have had a very big dry spell,
yeah.
but their fans did show out when they finally made the tournament and won some
Hmm.
games this year. So, but the problem for the Penn State type programs is that okay, you get into the expanded tournament as a 12 seed or 11 seed or whatever, and you're playing the first round. It's not even really the first round. Those people aren't going to get engaged until after they've won some games. It's really the same problem that befalls the programs at the Horizon League. By the time your team is
Yeah.
good and fans turn out, it's already the end of the season. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I don't think this is going
And
to
even
benefit anybody.
and honestly, Jim, even in some cases, even when they are good and they're the end of the season, the fans don't show up because they're so turned off by other reasons. See if you can guess who I'm talking about there, because I might mention them a little later. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Um, there's not any real foresight here other than to fill an immediate need, and under this perception that you know the more bigger schools you get involved, the more that people are going to show up, which is again, I mean, which is kind of really myopic. You think about it, I mean, maybe they have the money to afford the tickets, but will they actually show up? I mean, are they going to end up on the secondary market? And are these tickets just going to end up on the secondary market like they always do anyway? Probably. But
There's
I mean,
countless
and the other
examples
thing
of.
too,
I
it
was gonna say there's
include
countless examples in the field of 68 right now where teams can't fill their full allotment of tickets and are selling them on the secondary market or to selling them to the other teams that are bringing bigger fan bases. Like that's already happening now with
yes, it
68
is
teams.
exactly, and it's just going to get worse. It's just going to look way stupider. But
I would
and
say
it's funny. Well, the other thing too, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong about this. This is a this is a dual argument because obviously we're talking about the men's tournament. The women's tournament, of course, is the same situation, where they're going to be expanded to 76, and the prospect. I am sure you've noticed that the prospect of Cinderella on the women's side is infinitely rarer. A how many since the women's tournament expanded to 64 teams, I had to look this up. The 14, 15, and 16 seeds have won a grand total of one game in that entire time, and that was in 98 with Harvard. The 13 seed has only won 10 times, and I'm pretty sure that Wright State is the last one to do it. And the other thing too on the women's side is that up until very recently, they weren't getting the monetary units that the men were. So I'm a little bit more ambivalent on it on the women's side because A, that tournament is always super chalky. And B, there's money there that wasn't there before. But to your original point, we still run into the issue of these teams who were really looking to get to that first round, they're not going to have that opportunity anymore.
on the women's
And
side, I think there's probably some opportunity in the NIL era for the bottom of the pool to close up a little bit. Um,
probably,
because the money difference. Okay, to UConn and Tennessee, the money difference is astronomical, but
oh, of
for
course,
where a lot of the the Power Four plus Big East is operating, you could probably put together a pretty good roster in women's
hmm
basketball at a mid-major level for under $1 million, and then be going up against a program that's maybe spending $2 million, and now you might have a chance.
Yeah,
Versus, you have no chance going against UConn, who probably has whatever, however many
yeah.
millions invested in their roster. But I feel
Hmm.
like I look at Green Bay and the women's side. They clearly, I don't know this for nobody from the programs told me this, but you don't get the kind of transfers they got in the offseason if you aren't spending a little bit of money. So
Hmm.
there's an
And
opportunity
I feel
for
like
maybe a little uprising.
the expansion discussion, at least on the women's side for the Horizon League, I don't because historically, year over year, the Horizon League on the women's side has not been in this kind of what we'll call the you know the last auto bids, the low auto bid zone, this 15 and 16 seeds. A Historically, the Horizon League has always been above that. So as far as it impacting the Horizon League itself, unless of course there's like a super surprise Horizon League team that wins the tournament, I feel like this isn't going to affect the women on the Horizon League on the women's side as much as it will the men. On the men's side, it's just a giant shit sandwich. On the women's side, we're talking about a conference that is very solid. And you're talking about, I mean, I don't want to pencil Green Bay in right now, but I kind of am. Um, you're talking about the team who wins this tournament generally getting not a 15 or 16 seed. The lowest the Horizon League team gets on the women's side, and it's very rare anymore, is the 14 seed. So from a Horizon League standpoint on the women's side, I feel like they're in a much better situation than the men are. So I don't know if we as the Horizon League are going to see the overall impact on the women's side from this tournament expansions as obviously the men are, which is devastating, of course.
Yeah. See, the men's basketball side,
It's
what we run
apples and
into is
oranges,
that,
really.
yeah, well, we run into on the men's side, it's just a little bit more open league in terms
Hmm.
of it's not the same teams dominating year in and year out. Wright State went from being in the bottom five to winning outright and winning the tournament championship in a 1 year
Hmm.
turnaround. And we've seen Cleveland State go from winning this league and winning the auto championship or the auto bid to being the
Hmm.
last place team, and that's all within a 5 year period. So you have some shifting, and also in the men's side,
They were not in
what
last
affects
place,
it
Jim. They were in
second to
10th
last.
place, damn it.
Sorry, sorry. As the MC of the show, Bob, I appreciate you correcting me on that. So, um, but what I was going with is that overall on the men's side, it is just a little bit more open in terms of
Yeah.
everybody seems to be trying to spend money to get players and build competitive
Yeah.
rosters. The challenge that we run into is every school is doing it a little bit differently. Their schedule looks a little bit different, and so the metrics component looks different come March when you can look at the league and go, hey, there's 6 teams that could win, and their rankings would have them anywhere from a 14 seed to a 16 seed play in because the
Hmm.
metrics aren't there based on how they had to go about getting the money and what kind of non-conference schedule they put together and success they had with that. On the women's side, there's I don't want to say there's less money in women's basketball, but you still can get high major home games as an example. You still get some
Sure.
opportunities to get them on neutral sites, and
Yes.
therefore you can put together better. Our best teams have been able to put together better metrics, and it didn't matter who won the
Yeah.
tournament because they were all pretty equal. So
Yeah. And
yeah, it's
I feel like with
different.
and it's funny you mention that because the on the again on the women's side with the Horizon League, I think you have obviously the perennial goal. I mean, it's not even me being having an opinion. We're talking about this has been the case for like since the 70s that Green Bay has been kind of at the tippy top of the Horizon League standings, and they have built themselves a reputation for being one of the best mid-major teams in the country. Um, I'm going to stop short of saying they're the Gonzaga of women's basketball, but they're pretty close. And I think as a result of that, the as a result of Green Bay being so good for so many years, it has allowed especially the top half of the Horizon League on the women's side to basically, for lack of a better word, step their game up, and you see the marked improvement, especially at the top half of the standings. Now, is that gonna now given the changes in coaching at Purdue, Fort Wayne, and Cleveland State, it's always an unknown if those two are going to stay at the top of that list. It's entirely possible, but then you also see teams like Youngstown State and Robert Morris, who have built their programs to the point where they now have an opportunity to go to compete and potentially knock Green Bay off the top. And there's no, and because, and even if that's the case, at least in my estimation, there's kind of where on the men's team, on the men's side, it's just an absolute, I don't know, you figure it out. And we're still, we've got like five-way ties for second place, and it's just kind of a mess, and their nets are all over the place. This is not the case on the women's side. There's not, especially at the top half of the standings, there's not that significant a drop off when we're talking about the metrics. And I feel, again, as I mentioned, from a Horizon League standpoint, I don't think the impact of this expansion is going to affect the women's side anywhere near as it's going to affect the men's side. But it's still
I
stupid.
yeah. In Horizon League basketball, for Horizon League women's basketball, Green Bay has had a Butler effect on the league. When
Yeah.
Butler was in the league
Oh,
and
yeah.
doing really well in the 2000s, everybody else had to step up their game. They had to, go about handling their business at a higher level, and you saw that with Milwaukee being very good in that era, Cleveland State being very strong in the Gary Waters, beginning of the Gary Waters tenure at least. Uh, Green Bay with Todd Kowalczyk, they put together a pretty good program. Never got to the tournament, but they were competitive every year. And so you
Hmm.
saw the Butler effect happen in
Yeah.
women's basketball. Green Bay has had a Green Bay effect where you've seen Youngstown State, despite coaching changes through the years, they've maintained a competitive women's program. Fort
Yeah.
Wayne seems pretty committed to that, so hopefully we see them maintain through the coaching change a competitive program. But yeah, I'm frustrated overall. Like I think as a mid-major fan and as the Horizon podcast, I look at the expansion and say I could get behind a tournament expansion that said every league got their auto qualifier and their regular
Mhm.
season champion. So maybe
Yeah.
one or two bids. I could have gotten
Hmm.
behind that. And then you
Yeah.
fill if you don't get if you don't get two out of the Horizon as an example because Wright State carries the flag, then somebody else gets that second bid. I could actually get behind that and say, all right, now we've got more opportunity. You're expanding the tournament and you're putting in place a process that allows some equality and opportunity for the leagues that are playing good basketball but are not getting those opportunities.
Yeah.
But just expanding to more Auburns when they have a 16, 17, 16 regular season or whatever they had, no thanks. Nobody cares.
No. No, they don't. I don't care if you did
Especially
win
when
the
those
NIT.
programs, yeah, and those programs have every advantage, every opportunity to not have only 17 wins.
Yeah.
That's the point, is that they have all home games. They play in marquee tournaments. They buy whatever program they want. They buy whatever players that they need. They have every advantage to not have a 17 win or 18 win regular season. So if you're strolling into the tournament on the proverbial bubble because you've inflated your metrics through money, but you didn't inflate your metrics through winning, F off. Get out of here.
No, you are absolutely right. Like I said, clusterfuck. Just complete and utter clusterfuck. That's
All
actually
right,
not
Bob,
the
where are we
only
going from?
thing. That's not the only thing the NCAA did. Apparently, they put together the framework for the 5 years and 5 year eligibility in 5 years thing. And guess who isn't included in that? Anybody who exhausted their eligibility this year.
I think that's one thing we can point to for the NCAA and say you finally got a spine and stood up for something. I
Yeah.
would have had a massive trickle down effect in a negative way. I talked to people in basketball. I talk to parents that I know that have kids who are high school seniors,
Hmm.
and they're very good players. And every coach is like, "Hey, we're not interested in high school players right now because we're waiting to see on older players, more experienced players." So, you know, do I love some of those guys as players that exhausted
Yeah.
their eligibility in the horizon? Like, of course. Do I enjoy watching them? Of course. But we've gotten to a point where we're so far removed from student athlete that it's just athlete and pro athlete. I mean, you look at like the quote that Brian Wardle had this week to local media in Peoria, Illinois about these are pro athletes. We expect them to be here, be working, getting better. Like they're pros now. They get paid. Like expanding eligibility after the fact. No, thank you. No, thank you.
You realize, of course, that this isn't going to be the end of the discussion, right? But you know what? We're at a point. I feel again that and they're not even, and this isn't even. It doesn't even sound like this whole thing is going to even be finalized until what the end, near the end of May, right before Memorial Day. At that point in time, if you're still sitting there waiting for something, the NCAA to change their mind, which it does not seem like they're planning to do, a lawsuit that's never going to happen, or it is going to happen and it's going to take even longer. You're at a point where if you're out of eligibility, I mean, somebody was going to get screwed here, and it's you guys. Sorry, that's how it happened. I mean, it is what it is. I mean,
On top
that
on
that's
top of
that's
that, the
what
schools aren't
happened.
going to have they're not going to have the kind of money that some of these players want anyway. Like if you're holding out because you want that fifth year because you think you're worth 250 grand or something at a certain level of basketball, schools are filling those spots, man. They're filling the spots and they're spending
I
their money.
mean,
Like nobody wants to be sitting there going, "Hey, I still got $1 million left on May
and more to the
31st."
point, you're getting, by the time they make this decision, you know, teams are already pretty well filled up and and already getting themselves set up for summer workouts. And they have their game plans together. And by the time the NCAA gets into this, I mean, there's an outstanding chance that this is, especially in the Horizon League. I mean, I don't, maybe a power conference leaves a slot open for somebody. I don't know. I mean, again, I feel like this is something, the guys who are, some of the guys who are, to your point, looking for that level of NIL money. It's not going to be a Horizon League team that's going to give it to them. It's going to be a power conference team. Then we'd be lying to ourselves if that's the case. But on the Horizon League end, I feel like that's probably something that probably isn't going to hit, at least incoming. I feel like that's not going to hit for Horizon League teams because again, by the time the NCAA gets this through and puts the framework together, and it sounds like it'll take at least a month for them to kind of put together the framework on how this 5-for-5 thing is going to this 5-for-5 thing is going to happen. These guys are going to be well into their summer workouts, and they're not even going to be thinking about recruiting for the upcoming season. They're already thinking about 27, 28, and beyond.
You know, I'll use a good example of money and waiting, and we'll never know how it turned out. But think of Cam Woods, left Robert Morris after the tournament run, didn't find a home, sat out until December or January before landing
Hmm.
at USC.
Hmm.
Probably didn't get nearly the amount of money that he was wanting, and then ended up on a team that didn't play in the postseason, which should be of no
Hmm.
surprise because they had three Horizon League players on their team. I mean,
And
I'm
one of
not
them was
ripping on.
hurt because Marion Dickerson. The reason that Cam Woods is on this team is because Marion Dickerson got knocked out for the entire season.
Yeah, and I'm not ripping on them as they're great players, but it's the idea
Yeah.
of like if you think you can just take a Horizon League All Star team and go head to toe or toe to toe with the Big Ten, I don't know that you can do that. And so that's
unless you're
where
Dennis
all of this,
Gates.
yeah. But that's where I feel like this whole thing is like we're throwing all this money around and all these rules, and you're losing sight of the fact that in the end, the players are still the same. They're still the same guy. Like
Yeah.
you don't just become a better player because you signed with USC. If you were at USC's level, you would be you at USC earlier. Like that's what's hilarious to all this, and you see the mobility of players and the overpaying of players. It leads to more because then a year from now, like Amarian Dickerson isn't back at USC. Why is
No.
that? Probably because they figured out he wasn't going to be the same kind of guy at their level. So they're just going to be like, hey, we can't pay you whatever we pay you to
Well,
produce the
clearly
level you
Grand
produce.
Canyon could, or somewhere close,
Yeah,
because
but
Grand
that's
Canyon
coming
is
down a level.
awash in
That's
money,
perfect
and
for
they're
him.
yeah.
That's
So
that's perfect for Amarian, who's a fantastic player. Don't get me wrong,
yeah, well,
but
absolutely, without a
I'm just
doubt.
saying that like that's the cycle of this whole thing. Is like if you're a mid-major guy moving up, you're hoping to get paid once because the likelihood of getting paid big bucks twice is pretty low. You're probably
Yeah.
not going to develop to the level, especially like Amarian Dickerson, who's like a 6'6" power forward. Like,
Yeah.
of course, that didn't work in the Big Ten. Whatever. What's next?
So, well, since we're talking about player movement, why don't we get into that whole horizon on horizon crime thing? Because, sorry, Jim, it appears you're a victim of this. Because CJ O'Hara
So
is heading to Wright State.
I can just say my separate of CJ being by all accounts a great person and a very good basketball player,
Oh yeah.
a good student, the whole thing. Like he's what mid-major teams would want to have. So it's great
Oh
that he
yeah.
found a spot. However, whoever is his agent should be fired immediately. There is no chance that you can tell me he entered the transfer portal on the very first day that it was open.
Yeah.
Before it was open, he announced a week before it was open. He was a very early announcer that he was going to enter.
He
That he
was.
did that to end up at Wright State. And I don't know for sure the dollar amount that Green Bay offered, but I know Green Bay has money. I know they wanted to
Hmm.
retain him. I would be willing to bet that whatever Green Bay's initial amount was that his agent rebuffed probably is in the range of what he got from Wright State. So
Probably. And by the time,
I'm
yeah,
not.
and by the time he, and funny you mentioned that, by the time he got around to making his decision, Green Bay had already moved on. They had already moved on with, bringing
Jackson
on
Edwards.
exactly. They brought in Jackson Edwards, and so
Yeah.
who
Who's a
who I
similar.
feel like is gonna definitely fill that CJ O'Hara role. Now, for CJ's part, Wright State, I feel like is a very good spot for him. Um, I feel like he could definitely the position he played with Green Bay is I feel like definitely uh his style of play certainly fits with what Wright State wants to do, and I feel like that's going to definitely be a big deal for them. So, um,
I think the challenging part for CJ is that he is a respectable 3-point shooter. But if you look at they lost Solomon Callahan, they lost Logan Woods. Those guys were spacing the court for Wright
yeah,
State. That isn't exactly CJ because he doesn't take a lot. Like when he
no,
takes them, you feel confident in his shot. And dude is a hard worker by all accounts. Like he's probably in the gym right now as we record this, working on his game. He's
oh
that
yeah,
kind of guy.
absolutely,
But I like Wright State just in that they have a good system. Where he fits in that, we're gonna find out. But I like, I like CJ O'Hara. He seems like the kind of guy that's gonna find a way to be successful. But overall, I can't imagine he entered the transfer portal thinking he was gonna end up at Wright State and still in
yeah,
the horizon. Like
true.
that to me seems like a little bit of like, all right, are we moving just to move? Are we moving because we're getting advice that's accurate, or are we getting advice from people who are seeing dollar signs and we're thinking, okay, hey, I can make 100 grand off this kid if I can get him a $500,000 contract, and there's no way Wright State's
No,
paying
there's
him.
not enough. There's, and I've said this before. There's only so many slots that are going to pay that level, and there are too many players that there are too many players chasing after that. And so, as I continue to say, when the music stops, you better find a chair.
Yeah, and you can see like a Ryan Prather as an example lands, who's not necessarily that much better of a player than CJ O'Hara, but Ryan
Yeah,
Prather is a 3-point shooter and
he
a
is.
very good one. And so similar type defender and scrapper and hustler,
Hmm.
and then he has better perimeter shooting. He's probably making 500 grand at or more at Iowa State.
Entirely
And
possible. Yeah.
and the difference between him and CJ isn't that much, but that perimeter play is super big. I mean, they're both the same, about the same size, 6'4", 6'5", 200, low 200-pound range. But one guy shoots threes and one guy doesn't. So
Yeah.
hopefully for CJ, he has a big season and then can, turn that into, in his senior year, the big payday that his agent was probably looking for, or his next
By
agent
the
will be
way, I know
looking
two
for.
weeks ago we talked about Marouane Cicic was kind of we weren't sure if he was going to be back or not. Yes, he did announce he is coming back to Green Bay. So wanted to throw that part out there.
And at the
So
same time, the junior college guy that they had, the big guy, he announced he wasn't coming to Green Bay. Mahalio. So
Stevich. Okay,
there's
gotcha.
yeah, so there's a lot more clarity for the Green Bay roster.
Yeah, I
Obviously,
mean, it's still pretty stacked
yeah.
for real.
Milwaukee's had a very interesting last week or so since we
Wow,
recorded, or
yeah,
two
I was
weeks.
like a little up until like early, very. I was very concerned about what was going on at Milwaukee because we didn't hear a lot going on. Um, but then they got guys coming home. They got they've got guys. They got a guy like Jake Hansen. He redshirted at Oklahoma, and now he's coming home. They got a guy like Trey Norman, who probably didn't get as much run as he wanted to at Marquette, and now he's going down the street to Milwaukee. Um, Same thing with Al Amadou from St. Joe's. But one of the things that I did find out, one of the things that, and it's funny because I just saw, because Bart Lundy actually posted this early, like late last night. We're recording on a Friday, on a Sunday, so he posted this like at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night. He posted a picture of the local guys who are going to be on the who are going to be part of the 26-27 team. Among those pictures, among those images are the guys they just brought in. Uh, Also, because this was a question that I had, also Simeon Murchison, he was hurt quite a bit last season, so we didn't see a lot of him last season. Looks like he's going to be back. Obviously, we talked about Danilo Jovanovic. He actually announced that he was returning. Uh, and then the question that I had that I wasn't sure, I didn't know if it was going to happen, is John Lovelace coming back? And the answer is, according to Bart Lundy, yes, he is. And Lovelace coming back is gonna be a huge deal for Milwaukee because if memory serves correct, he was gonna be their starting three last year until he got hurt. Now the question is going to be, of course, is he gonna be 100% afterwards? The answer, of course, is always I don't know. Um, but this is Milwaukee, and the injury bug just really does bite them all the time. But that's a good sign that he's back for them. Huge deal.
Yeah, they've brought in some pieces. I think the challenging part for them is that it's all projection based. Like they didn't getting Danilo back. Obviously, you know what he can do, but the other players that you mentioned that they brought in, Womack and Hansen in particular, redshirted, didn't play, so you don't know what you're
Yeah.
getting in terms of on-court production. So you're
Mhm.
hoping to coach those guys up, and of course, Coach Lundy had a fantastic season with two freshman players that played very well for him. So you can't count out what he can do there. And then Al Amadou, being going into his fourth year of college basketball, played 40 games total. Never played more
Something
than
like that,
10 minutes.
yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't been able to crack through. So it'll be interesting to see, did they find their right level now, or is he truly just a 2 point and 1 rebound per game guy, no matter what level? I mean, we don't know the answer, but you at least can look at that and say it's an interesting player to have. I think Trey Norman, he was, excuse me, he was playing and productive for Marquette. Just didn't have a big role minutes wise, but he's played a lot of games. That's probably the guy that you look at.
I would expect him to be one of the
a 14-point per game guy, probably, maybe. I mean,
yeah.
I know he's a defensive player, but he's big, he's athletic, he's kind of guy that most Horizon League teams aren't going to have on the ball. So yeah, I like what they did on paper.
Yeah,
it's very hard to project and be like, okay.
I feel like Trey Norman could slot into that Amar Aguilar spot at the 2 because outside of the guys that they're bringing in,
is that the spot where you just get to chuck up anything you want and not play defense?
Pretty much.
I'll totally do that. I could do that.
Yeah. So, but again, from a returning player standpoint, I feel like they've got enough guys who they got the experience, and you could easily. I mean, Isaiah Dorcius is back. I think so. There's your point guard at least. You got Lovelace back. You got Chandler Jackson coming back. Nivanovic. These guys are these are guys who, when healthy, played a pretty big role for when Milwaukee was doing okay. Last season was just a disaster for them health wise. So that's always going to be a question mark. And I think I guess the other part of that will be when it comes down to these guys to be able to step into the roles and potentially play for a whole season. To your point, a lot of that, some of that is projection, but some of that is based on the guys that are coming back, by and large. I think that's but again, Lovelace coming back is a really big deal for them.
Did anybody else have any big moves this week, Bob?
I think Robert Morris finally got some people.
Oh, they did, and every single guy is like, that's a pretty good poll, because every guy they had like D1 experience, basically.
Yeah.
Or most of them had some D1 experience.
Yeah. Yeah, like later this week, like a couple days ago, they Casey Uguakazi. Okay, I'm gonna get this right, and I'm gonna say this with confidence. Hopefully, I don't have to be corrected by Chris Shovlin again, who will know the actual pronunciation. But yeah, he's a 6'8" kid from Merrimack. He's announced he's transferring. Jalik Dunkley, which has an out. Come on, man. The guy's 6'7" and his last name is Dunkley. That is a basketball name if I've ever heard one. He's coming in from Nicholls State, so that he ought to be a good one. And I feel like slowly but surely Robert Morris, because they kind of they're definitely hitting the portal, and it's definitely a matter of that's how they're doing it. Because as of right now, I don't think they have any high school seniors signed. So it looks like as of right now, at least, they are definitely working the portal hard, which is probably why it's taking why the influx of incoming players is probably a little slower than elsewhere.
Well, it's clear though that with the guys they had and the D1 stats that they have some money to spend at Robert Morris, because these guys aren't coming in for free. Although I will say, I'm scorned by Brian Atumnu. If you came from Merrimack and you're 6'7", 6'8" power forward type, until you prove otherwise, I'm just assuming you're not going to play. I'm just kidding around.
He did play, but then he fell off the planet, which was weird.
Yeah.
Which remains weird, by the way.
It does. But I'm only kidding when I say that with the gentleman that's coming to Robert Morris. It's just, but last year people were very excited by Atumnu, and he kind of disappeared. So hopefully the gentleman that Robert Morris got is going to be able to compete and for opportunity for them. And with their front court kind of got decimated because they lost their three most, their three best front court players that they had. Two of them have already signed at high majors, and then obviously the really tall guy, Hill, he entered the portal, I don't know where he ended up yet, but
he's actually yeah, he's the one guy who hasn't found a landing spot yet.
he had
He's
some
the
sort
one
of
guy
injury
from
though,
Robert
because was
Morris
he
who hasn't found a landing. What's that?
didn't he have was he on like a scooter at the end of the season? Was that him?
I don't remember, honestly.
Yeah,
No idea.
he was hurt. Yeah, he was hurt. I don't know
Ah,
what he had going on, but that could be a factor in his not landing anywhere
I
yet.
don't doubt it. Yeah. So let me just say this for the record. At the moment, I'm a little disappointed that Northern Kentucky hasn't signed a non D1 guy yet. It's fun because Darren Horn for the last 4 or 5 years he's brought in non D1 guys, and as of right now he hasn't brought in any. He's been just going the regular D1 transfer route.
Well, Darren Horn
But I mean,
hasn't
they're
been to the big
really
dance.
good though. What's that?
Yeah, but he hasn't been to the big dance in a couple of years, so he's probably looking around, going, "You know what? I'm gonna get more Donovan O'Days just to be safe."
I don't blame him
Yeah,
because he got the LaSalle transfer Eric Acker coming in. Yeah, he is, however, loading up on players from down under. Will
I'd say I
Sh-
saw they got
so
another one.
Yeah, no, so Will Short was already in. Will Short apparently is in Australia, but spent a lot of his formative years in New Zealand, which is where the confusion came from as to is he Australian or is he a New Zealander? The answer is yes, apparently. But they actually dipped into the Australian well again, and Noah Pagato from East Texas A&M is also in. So yeah, needless to say, it's been a pretty big week for them. BJ Davis Ray from SMU uh, is also on the board for Northern Kentucky. So one of the things that I know that was kind of a point of concern for most of the last year for Northern Kentucky, and they seem to kind of overcome it really, is their lack of size because they definitely didn't have any. But at the same time, LJ Wells was pretty good doing it. So so having a guy like Pagato, who's a 6'8" guy, is probably a good, and Will Short also 6'8". I think we had a conversation about if he's kind of more of a Cale Robinson type of guy, but I guess we'll find out soon enough.
Hey, Bob. Sorry, I kicked out of there for a second.
Yeah, I can tell. Am I seeing double? But yeah, I feel like I feel like the size is the issue. The size I thought the size was the issue for Northern Kentucky last year, but LJ Wells seemed to fill that role pretty well on his own. So, and historically, Northern Kentucky's never really been ever that big a team, and some years it didn't matter. Some years, like the year before, it kind of did. I feel like the pendulum is swinging back the other way for Northern Kentucky.
Yeah, Northern Kentucky. I mean, even back when they had Zordval as a young player, he didn't really play that much for them. And they've had a couple
No,
of 6'10", 6'11" guys. They tried a couple of different walk-ons that were 6'10" back in the day. They haven't really. They've had their most success with 6'7", 6'8" forwards. Drew McDonald, L.J. Wells, Cale Robinson.
yeah,
That's worked for them. There's no need to deviate from the strategy that's working for them.
nope, sure, no, not really. And watch as I'm expressing my disappointment that they haven't signed any non D1 transfers. There's gonna be like one or two this week that pop up. Watch that's gonna happen as well as I do.
Well, I also think that's just a reality at the Horizon League level is that those are guys that typically we can afford. So
Yeah,
whether you're counting on them as a role player or a marquee player, maybe that's the difference in, what a season might look like. But there's plenty of guys at that level that can impact a game. And we
sure.
saw, many good players come from D2 or even D3 last year in the Horizon League. But the challenge is that if you build your whole team with guys that are just a little too small or a little, something's just a little off, that's where you lose the scale. But I've said it before, you grind it out of a game, or game after game after game. But you can have some of those guys
Yeah,
on your team and be fine. And those guys typically, because there's less money at D2,
sure.
there's you're gonna be able to afford them. They're not coming in here looking for $250,000, most of them at least.
Hmm. True. Um, well, we got to talk about Northern Illinois because they snatched they added an old friend of the Horizon League in David Douglas Jr. He's coming back from the West Coast, gonna go play for Northern Illinois. They also got a really good point guard in Isaiah Bunton from South Dakota. So we were asking, is he just gonna is Matt Mackrzak gonna just build from just non D1 transfers? The answer is a resounding no. I think he heard us and like, you know what? We're gonna get some D1 guys in here. And boy did they.
Yeah, I think David Douglas is a all Horizon League level player. He is
He was
has
the
the
freshman of the year.
yeah,
He
and
was well on
he
his
has
way.
individual. He has the ability to make a shot. Like sometimes when you're in a game, it's a close game. At the end of the 76ers game last night when they eliminated the Celtics, Tyrese Maxey was just talking about yeah, we got X's and O's, but at the end of the day, you got to have Jimmys and Joes, and they have Embiid and Maxey, and that was what they needed. Well,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, you need a guy that can put the ball in the basket and oftentimes be able to make a play on their own. And I think David Douglas is that kind of guy. So I think
Yeah.
it's a great level for him. Obviously, for him, a consideration was getting to the right level and getting close to home because he is from
Yes.
the greater Chicago area. But
Indeed,
overall,
he
I
is.
think it's
He's from
great for him.
Yorkville, which I believe is closer. Yeah, if memory serves correct, Douglas is a part of that Illinois. The former Illinois to Green Bay pipeline that, as we talked to Kiefer Sykes last year, um, I know you're hoping that gets reopened soon.
Yeah, Green Bay did get Amir Carson, who's probably going to be a
They
starter for
did.
them, and he's from
True.
Chicago. So they're not shut out in that regard. They were, based on online reports, they were recruiting Jalen Griffin, who now is at Eastern Washington. Washington was previously at Western Michigan. He's from Chicago.
Hmm.
So there are some other players in the Chicago area that they had been associated with based on Twitter intel. But
Yeah.
ultimately, I think that's great for NIU to get a player like that because they have a lot of guys that they took that weren't even proven at the D2 level, let alone the D1 level, and now you're getting
Hmm.
guys who have some D1 success. The guy from South Dakota I thought was another nice player for them.
Oh yeah,
So
I thought. Yeah, I saw.
overall,
Yeah, I looked him up, and
Matt,
he's a good guy to get.
yeah, Matt I think had a big week. Coach Matt had a big week, so that's great for him, and hopefully continues to build on that from here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Yeah, I don't think anybody else really did anything by and large. I mean,
Cleveland
um,
State's signed some guards. They got the East or Northern
yeah, but
Texas
I guess
transfer.
CJ Stinson, I guess he's the player to be named later in the Daniel Robinson hiring at North Texas.
There you
Because
go.
yeah, CJ Stinson again. It's interesting because yeah, again, this Ohio connection. Yes, CJ Stinson's originally from Iowa, but he went to Western Reserve Academy, which is where in Northeast Ohio. So there's always I this has been a big a Rob Summers theme throughout this offseason is he's getting these guys who have those Northeast Ohio has those Ohio connections, and honestly it looks like everybody in the, at this point they've got 11 guys committed, and I feel like they're getting close to full there, which and again, and if memory level, let's see, yes, and Stinson is 6'5", so technically the no short kings rule still applies. Although Jordan Lowry is 6'1", so from UT Arlington, so I guess exceptions can be made.
Well, you need a quick little guy that can handle the ball and get the offense
Well, he's
started.
got a
So
couple of them coming in. So he's got Lowry, you got Micah Bays too, the Central State transfer. So one of those two guys is going to probably be your starting point guard, and he's got a lot. I mean, they're gonna, yeah. They swung the other way on the pendulum where they appeared to be entirely too short last season. This year they're going swinging on the whole other side of the pendulum. And I think I can. To me at least, I feel like um, there's a reason for that this year. Because remember, Rob Summers didn't get hired until after the Final Four. And this was last year when the transfer portal opened after the first week of the tournament. And as you know, of course, what players usually get snapped up first? The big guys. And so by the time Rob Summers got to the point where he could get his fill his roster, the guys he probably wanted at the four, and the big guys that he probably wanted had already found other teams, and he didn't have an opportunity to take who he felt would be a better fit for this team. Now that he's had an entire recruiting cycle, obviously it's a different story, and uh, and also probably again benefiting from the fact that everybody had to wait until after the Final Four.
well, and also thinking too, like what it was the quote from Coach Campy this week that I forget, was it Griffin or somebody of that nature put on X, was every big guy wants $1 million, even the ones with no stats, something like that.
Yes,
So,
that is correct. Yeah.
so there's a separate issue of Coach Summers now, as he getting into it late last year. Everybody wants a lot of money if you're just for being big.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is that everybody does, but at the same time, I mean, but again, the other thing in this is that I I really feel it's like, again, to your point, a lot of these guys are getting this one big payday, and then after the season's over, they may be reevaluating their options. Now, in the case of Cleveland State, it doesn't look like that's the case because most of these guys are coming from similar mid majors, so it's probably again because most of these guys are coming in from like you know DeAndre Jones and Rayvon Griffith came in from Kent State. All right. Derek Vorst came in from Indiana State. So these guys are, there's a little bit of more, it's more of a lateral move, really, but there may also be it's entirely possible that that's the case. I mean, at least in this case, that's not kind of the focal point, at least not at this point in time. I mean, we could be talking this time next year and every single one, like 3/4 of them find themselves a decent payday out of a power conference. Entirely possible. But that's kind of where we're at here. Now, there was one other thing I wanted to talk about Cleveland State with, but it's something that if I go through the last 10 years of this podcast, would fill up 3 or 4 whole episodes. So I'm going to hold off on that because it's something that bugs me, and I don't want to deal with that today.
Oh, end on a positive note, Bob.
I will end on a positive note that Cleveland State Cleveland State is now slowly but surely filling up their roster and will probably fill up their roster soon. And by the way, back to closing this out with Milwaukee, looking at their roster right now, I think they're pretty much got the full complement. I think they're at 15 now, if I recall correctly. So yeah, so they got all the returning players, and I'm actually counting because Murchison is still counted as a walk on, and Austin Villarreal is also definitely a walk on. So I think they're at 15 now. So I think they actually have a full roster now going into the summer workouts. So I think they're done. Which is a sentence that I did not think I would be saying this week. Go figure.
Well, they went to work. They got it done. They didn't have anything going there for a little bit. Now they've filled up, so that's good. I believe Green Bay still has 2 spots left, so that's where they're at.
I do have a question though, and this is I do have actually have a question for you, and I don't know if you know the answer to this question. Is the question about Dontrell Hewlett? Is he done, or is what's going on with him?
I can't imagine he's going to play for Green Bay again next year if he's healthy.
Okay,
Uh,
okay,
yeah,
fair enough.
I mean
Okay, and we don't
he
really,
did
and
go
since
through he went through their senior day,
yeah,
activities.
mhm,
Um, you know, if they if he was planning on coming back, I assume he would have stayed
yeah.
out of that. So I would guess
Well,
he's
also
not.
since he's classified as a grad transfer, the whole transfer portal window doesn't necessarily apply to him either. So there's that. So
Yeah,
I didn't know. I wasn't sure. Oh well. Okay. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for us. Uh, so I think we're gonna take next week off. Actually, yeah, yeah, I'm definitely taking next week off.
sounds
Until
good.
then, what's that?
I said that sounds good.
Yeah, because I don't think anything else. I don't think anything else of great, seismic things and kids are, yeah, yeah, everybody's going through commencement already. I think Wright State and Oakland already had theirs. Next week is just about everybody else, and summer workouts are going to get started, and we're going to end up in our own summer thing. I'm just hoping and praying that everybody is that I really want all these rosters to be filled because clocking these for the purposes of the transfer tracker is a lot of work, guys. It's just a lot of work. But
Bob, let's make an agreement here.
yeah,
We will take next week off, but
yeah.
reserve the right for the inevitable. Uh, something hits the fan. Another coach gets fired in May. Somebody gets quits and leaves and moves on. Well, then we can reserve the right for an emergency podcast if needed, but
Indeed.
nothing. How about that?
Yeah, I'm good with that mostly because of the fact that I feel like this is actually the one year where that's not going to happen. Crossing fingers. All right. Well, until then, horizonroundtable.com. That's where you can find all your podcast episodes and all of our articles. Um, Guys, baseball's still going on. We got baseball articles. Go, horizonroundtable.com. You can pull us up on wherever podcasts are available. You can also pull us up on your Amazon or Google devices. So tune in next time. Until then, thank you all for listening.